Jumping out the whip, shit cold. Watching my step ground froze. Most my days spent alone. Same with my bro, he knows. Ay, gotta pay dues. Walking in mud, you can check my.
Hey y'all, what is up? Welcome back to another video. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Chanina. Hey girl, hey. And so y'all, we are doing a work vlog today, and I'm going to answer, or maybe not answer, a couple questions because I checked my comments and I didn't have any recent questions about Arise that were directed to me. I did notice that you guys are conversing with each other in the comments. Those that are familiar with the platform, sharing their experience and everything, so that is great. So I'll probably touch on a couple of topics today regarding working on the platform, and hopefully that'll be helpful to you guys. But first things first, in all transparency, I just caught my last interval. I had an interval scheduled for an hour and a half. I missed the first hour of it because I was with tech support, so I was able to catch the last one. So I just got off the last call for that. So let's touch that subject for a quick second. I know that a lot of you are probably wondering, well, you always come on here and say you can create your own schedule, and there's flexibility and stuff like that. So let me explain how that actually works. So once you are registered to the platform and you enroll into a certification, towards the end of your certification is when you'll be introduced to our scheduling system, which is called Starmatic. And you won't actually have access to it. Like, you'll see the icon on your on your home screen, but you won't actually be able to go in and select anything because it's not registered to the client that you're certifying for just yet. So once you get towards the end of your certification, there is going to be someone that is going to visit you in the virtual classroom that is going to go over all of the information for Starmatic, the do's, the don'ts, how to adjust the settings so that it matches your time zone, which is really important, you guys, because if you do not fix the time zone to match your time zone, you're going to be servicing or possibly missing intervals because it's set for the right time zone, right? I mean, for the wrong time zone. So there is someone that comes and goes over all of that with you guys while you're in certification. But once you get access to the Starmatic, you'll see your client and you'll be able to go in and select which times that you want to service. So when you open it up, there's going to be like 100 little bitty boxes, right? Each box is 30-minute intervals, right? So we call them intervals, but out here in the world, we normally refer to them as shifts, right? But the verbiage for the platform is intervals. So you are able to literally go in and select which intervals you want to service that day. So like, for example, my next interval starts at, what time is it? At 12 o'clock. So about 2 weeks ago, when the schedule was released, which that's another thing, the schedule is always released about a week or two prior, right? So you have the opportunity to go in, select your hours, and as the days go on, if you need to readjust your schedule, you are able to. But I'm going to tell you guys about that here in just a second. So, and what not to do with that, okay? So you're able to go in and select when you want to work. Now, once you select those intervals, you are obligated to those intervals, right? You are telling the client, hey, I'm going to be working this interval, right? Okay. So that's kind of where the flexibility comes in. You're able to just go in, choose when you want to work. If something comes along, like you have a last minute doctor's appointment or something like that, you are literally able to go in and deselect that interval. So let's talk about that, because the scheduling system can be kind of tricky, right? What you don't want to do is go in and start just releasing a whole bunch of intervals without reselecting new intervals, right? Because you want to keep your commitment adherence percentage at the level that is required for that particular client, right? So when you're selecting intervals, You want to make sure you work them. If you're not able to work them, you got two options. You can swap it. So what that means is if it's outside of the 48-hour time frame in which your shift is supposed to start, right? You can go in, you can swap it, or you can release it. Honestly, it's going to only give you the release option because you're outside the lockdown time, right? So you're not going to be penalized, or in layman's terms, your commitment adherence score is not going to be affected, right? It's only when you're within the 48-hour time frame, right? So if you're within the 48 hours of when it's time for you to work, then you will get an option to swap your intervals. So that basically means that you can go in, select the box, hit submit. It'll give you an option to swap, release, or cancel. You're going to hit swap, and the box is going to change. You hit submit, the box is going to change colors, and then it's kind of like a waiting game to see if someone else picks up that interval. Now what's going to happen is if no one picks up this interval within about an hour and a half prior to the interval starting, or 2 hours prior to the interval starting, it'll change back to you being obligated to work that interval. So you'll go in and you'll notice that the color of the box has changed back to its original color because no one has picked up that interval, right? So now you are obligated to still work that interval. Now, if you're in a situation where you're still not able to work the interval, then that's when you release the interval. I always suggest my agents to, if they are going to release intervals, always pick up an interval that same week so that your score doesn't start to drop, right? Because once it starts to drop, it's kind of hard to bring it back up depending on the client that you're working for. So that's the flexibility in doing this. So you have it's really up to you on how much you want to work, as long as you are meeting the minimum service requirement, right? So every client has a minimum amount of hours that they want you to work every week, okay? And that is the requirement. So you're able to go in, choose the minimum requirement intervals, right? You do that first, and then it's probably going to make you wait until later on that day to be able to choose more. It just depends. I'm not going to get too deep into that part of it because it's confusing to a lot of people, right? Unless you've been doing this for a long time. So to cut the confusion with that, I'm just not even going to touch on that. But for the most part, it is a flexible opportunity. It's kind of like a side hustle in a sense because it's contracting work, right? So you don't have anybody telling you that you have to work from this time to this time, this time to this time, this time to this time. It's you that are telling yourself that you're going to be working from this time to this time, this time to this time. You know what I'm saying? So that's the flexibility in all of it. So that's one thing that I wanted to touch on, was talk about the schedule a little bit, because I think some people might be curious as to how is it that you're able to set your own hours. If you guys have been watching my channel, I know a lot of you come back to view my videos, but there are some of you that are new. So you'll probably notice me working and then doing other things and then working and stuff like that. That's because I was able to choose when I wanted to work for that day. Now, here's the thing. Let's just say that, okay, your minimum service requirement was like 20 hours for the week, right? You're not obligated to just stick with the 20 hours. So if there are more intervals available and you haven't reached your max cap, which is the most hours you can work that week, if you haven't exceeded that, then you'll be able to go in and choose more intervals. So if you feel like your week is kind of short, or you got some free time and you can work a little bit, service some calls, even if it's for like 30 minutes, girl, you can go in and grab that 30 minutes, right? So it's really, really flexible working on the platform. So y'all, we are going to jump into a call. The call volume for the last couple of days have been a little bit distant as far as the amount of time that it takes for each call to come in. And that's not unusual. We're going into kind of like a slow season with my client. I am servicing a cruise client. So throughout the year, you'll have your slow seasons, right? Because not a lot of people are traveling at certain times around the year, yada, yada, yada. So, anyways, I am going to get into a call. Like I said, I don't know how these calls are going to go. The one that I just recently had, it went smooth. It didn't take long to do what she needed to be done, you know, all that jazz. So if I feel like there's like going to be a long pause on the call, I'll just stop the video and then just start it, and then pick it back up when the conversation continues or when the call continues, right? So it may look a little bit choppy when it comes to me actually doing the calls, okay? But we'll come back because there is another topic that I want to talk about with you guys, and that is a termination of SOWs. So let's jump into a call and then we'll come back and chit chat some more. Chanina, who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today? Hello, how are you today? I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. How can I help you? Sure. Okay, thank you. Okay. What's your agency phone number and who are the guests? Okay. All right, thank you. And they're going to be cruising July 20th at Boston. Yeah, how can I help you? Okay. Okay. Let me take a look. Yeah, I do see that they have $100 in under credit per person. Is that the amount from the agency, or is that? Oh, okay. Okay. What's the previous booking number that they had? Oh, thank you. All right, y'all, so let's get into our next topic, and that is SOWs. So I had mentioned that I wanted to kind of touch on termed SOWs, which is an SOW that has been terminated, right, by the client, okay? SOW is an acronym for Statement of Work. And to be honest with you guys, it is rare that the client terminates the SOW, but when it happens, it is for a reason, right? They're not just going around and say, oh, boop, boop, I don't want you to service no more, boop, I'm gonna kick you off. They're not doing that, right? Because they're trying to get as many people as possible to service their customers, okay? So when you get an SOW, you generally get this around the end of your certification class, because that's when you start taking calls and stuff, and you'll be paid and all of that, right? So in this contract or SOW, it is going to have some very important information, right? So if you receive one, guys, hold on to it so that you can refer back to it, right? Because what it's going to tell you is the start and end date of this contract, who you're going to be providing services to. So it's going to have your client, right? It's going to have any special service requirements. So like required holiday servicing, things like that, right? Because we just had Thanksgiving, Black Friday. So a lot of agents were required to service on those days for a certain amount of time, right? And okay, yeah, so service, special service requirements, certification servicing requirements, because there's two SOWs. There's a certification SOW that you get when you're in certification, and then once you're done with certification, you get a production SOW. So here's the thing. When you have a certification SOW, you want to pay attention to what's in your SOW, because you don't want to risk not being in compliance before you get into production, right? Okay, so you'll have some special servicing requirements on there depending on the client. It'll tell you how much you get paid per interval, okay? How much you get paid per interval, and then a bunch of other legal jargon, right? But that's the that's the nutshell of the SOW. It's a whole lot of legal jargon, okay? But those are the main things that you're going to need to look for in this SOW. Oh, it'll also let you know about meetings, okay, with your performance facilitator, huddles, stuff like that. You're required to do all of that even if you don't want to, right? So when you get this SOW, when it becomes active, you're good to go. Now you have to follow this SOW, right? Okay, here is a couple of ways that you could get your SOW terminated. Okay, it's rare, again, that clients are going around terminating SOWs, but they will, okay, if necessary, right? And so here's the easiest ways to get your SOW terminated, okay? Not showing up to work. So basically, let's say you've created a schedule where you are to work all day Tuesday, right? But then Tuesday comes, you don't go into the system to release any intervals or swap any intervals. You just basically don't show up to work. So now this is considered, like any traditional job, a no call, no show, right? So in our case, there's nobody to call to say, hey, I can't come to work today. In our case, we have to go in and adjust our schedule. Like I was explaining to you guys a little bit earlier about swapping, releasing, things like that. So if you go a certain amount of time with not showing up to the intervals that you scheduled, they will terminate your SOW, because no call or no shows, okay, we're going to take the no call out because you're not calling anybody, but no shows are typically unacceptable, right? Just like any job, you just can't be on a schedule and then you don't come, right? So that's the fastest way to get your SOW terminated, is to just not go to work, okay? The second way that your SOW can be terminated is just basically not being in compliance with the metrics, right? So if you have if you have a situation where, like, let's say you are your call handling time is over the percentage that they want you to be in, right? And it's consistently over, right? They may have an issue with that. Let's say you're supposed to stay at a certain percentage with transferring calls, right? Because some clients, they don't even want you to transfer, right? They want you to take care of the calls yourself. And then there's other clients that it's a no-brainer. There's just some things that you can't do that are set up for other departments, so you have no choice but to transfer them, right? But the idea is to keep the call transfers at a minimum, right? So I'm just generally speaking in this case, because again, it's going to vary by the client. So let's just say that you have not been meeting your call transfer percentage. You're always over, you're transferring all your calls, right? they're going to be looking at that. They're going to be saying, why is she always transferring her calls? And what they're going to do is they're going to reach out to your performance facilitator to brief them on what's happening. And your performance facilitator is going to reach out to you to give you the information, about what's happening. And they are going to prompt you to set up a meeting with them. Right? So that's another thing that it's going to probably be in your SOW is meetings with your performance facilitator, because when you meet with them, they're there to help your call flows be a little bit better. And y'all, I don't know why this is like keep going in and out of focus, so I apologize about that. But they are there to assist you in making your call flow a little bit better. So if you are servicing a client and you're never going to the huddle meetings, but you're always not meeting your metrics, honestly, that's on you, because that's what they are there for. That's why you pay the platform usage fee, okay? They provide you with the assistance. So another example, let's say that you had a bad call, right? Let's just say that one of your calls got pulled, right? And one of the things that they want you to do in your SOW is to your call handling, right? So generally, there are certain things that they will dock you for if you are not handling the call properly. So for example, let's say you get on the phone with a customer, right? And you're trying to rush them off the phone. They don't like that, right? So that could be an issue. Another issue could be if you are constantly over talking the guest, right? Because at that point, they are feeling like you're not using your listening skills, right? Because you're supposed to listen in order to get a better understanding of what the issue is, right? If you're constantly over talking the person, that's not a good thing. They get frustrated. And if you're working a client that provides a customer service satisfaction, feedback at the end of the call, this person that was feeling a way about you over talking them could have given you a bad feedback, right, on your customer satisfaction. Okay, some clients offer the survey at the end, some don't, but you just want to be careful. You want to be respectful to the customers that you are assisting. You don't want to rush them off the call. However, you do want to keep in mind of your call handling time and just try to take control over the call the best that you can without being disrespectful or rude. Okay, so those are some ways that can get you your SOW terminated. But all of these things, you guys, to be honest with you, they are also preventative. The thing is, you just have to use the resources that are provided. Like, believe it or not, I've had people in the past complain about the platform usage fee. But to be honest with you, if they didn't provide what they're providing on the platform, you would just be it almost kind of be like you're just thrown to the wolves. I remember the first video that I made about a rise, and that was a phrase that I used in the videos, that they're not just gonna throw you out to the wolves, because they don't. But in this case, you just want to really be careful. They are watching. When you're in the chat rooms, the clients are in the chat rooms too. You don't see them, but they're there. So you just have to be careful, how you're handling these calls, and make sure that you are handling them in a way that that particular client wants you to handle them. If not, then you could put yourself at risk. Another thing that could get your SOW terminated, and I think this kind of goes in with the meetings and stuff, right? So there are skill enhancements. So after you've certified to service the client, over time, the longer you service the client, you'll have to do skill enhancements, right? So it's like a refresher on everything you did, or everything you've been doing, or it could be just maybe some information changed, and they need to brief you on it, but they put it in a like a self-paced type of setup where you go in and it's like classwork, right? Virtual classwork. Depends on what the information is, and you just do it, right? When you don't do those things, they will count against you because you're not in compliance with the statement of work, right? It is continuing certification or education in a sense, right? So you definitely want to do that. If you are having trouble on your calls, you need to take advantage of reaching out to your QAPF so that you can have meetings so that they can listen to your calls and advise you on what to do, what not to do, things like that. So honestly, in a nutshell, it is hard to get your SOW terminated by the client. However, it is very much possible if you are not doing what you are supposed to be doing on your end, right? When it comes to the work ethic, okay? So I just kind of wanted to explain that a little bit, because you are an independent contractor, which means you will get a contract to work. And just like any other job, you have to follow that contract, right? Everything is still flexible though, so don't get it twisted. You still have a lot of flexibility, but at the same time, these clients have certain requirements that they want you to fulfill. And the moment you sign that contract, or in my case, my agents, I just send them a copy of it and they sign it as an acknowledgement, right? So that they're able to have a copy of it at all times. Once you get it and you sign it or whatever, you are now obligated. Now, can you go in and terminate your contract? Okay, so now let's talk about that, because that information was if the client terminated your I want to say one more thing too. So if the client terminates your SOW, if I remember correctly, there was a time where you couldn't enroll into another client. You had to sit and wait for a second. I don't think that that's true anymore. Now, if you have an SOW that's been terminated by the client, you can jump into another certification course for a different client. You don't have to wait. However, you will not be able to re-enroll with the same client. So for example, if you were servicing, let's say, the luxury client, right? And the client terminated your SOW, you will not be able to work with that client again, okay? But you will be able to enroll in another client. Now, here's the exception to that, okay? Let's say your SOW was terminated because of fraud activity, because that happens too. Every now and again, we get people on the platform that do fraudulent activity, right? Unfortunately for them, not only will their SOW be terminated, but they will be removed from the platform. And they might have some charges being brought against them. I mean, I'm just going to be honest, because you're a thief at that point, okay? So that is a no tolerance policy that they have. They don't roll like that. So if that's the reason your SOW got terminated, I guarantee you will no longer have access to the platform. Not tomorrow, not 30 days from now, never, okay? You will not be able to go back on the platform because you committed a fraud. You've participated in fraudulent activity, okay? So that's the exception to that. So now, let's say that you are servicing a client, right? And you're not feeling it, but you're already in this SOW. You've already started servicing under this SOW. You can go in and terminate the SOW. So if you are not under a call center or not working with, I don't like to say under because it sounds like a pyramid situation, but working with an IBO, your IBO can go in and terminate your SOW. Okay. Now, here's the thing about that, because all IBOs do things a little bit differently, okay? And I've heard so many different stories about this, right? Before you request to have your SOW terminated, right, what I would recommend is you first check with your IBO to make sure that there aren't going to be any fees for terminating your contract before it ended, right? Because there are some IBOs that do charge termination fees if you did not complete the project, right? Okay, so you might want to check that out first. If I were you, if you're with an IBO who is charging a fee to terminate your SOW, I would work the rest of that SOW, okay? And then when you're presented with a new one, if the client gives a new SOW with a new start date, you are more than welcome to decline it, right? Okay, because there's a difference between terminating your SOW in the middle of the contract versus just not accepting a new one. So if you truly feel that that client that you're servicing is not for you, okay, check with your IBO. Just let them know, hey, I ain't feeling this client no more. What do I need to do to get on my contract, right? And whatever policies that they have in place for their call center, they will go over all that with you, hopefully, okay? And then you go from there. But yeah, if you are your own sole proprietor, your own IBO, you can just go in and terminate your SOW and it's nothing, right? It's not going to affect any other SOWs that you may have because you can service more than one client on the platform, right? You just cannot be in two certification classes at the same time, right? So it's not gonna, if you terminate your own SOW, it's not going to affect any other clients that you might be servicing. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to talk to you guys about that a little bit because I don't think we've ever talked about termination of SOWs on this channel, but I recently had a situation where that actually happened to one of my agents. Their SOW was terminated and I had to go and do all these things to try to find out why. And so yeah, and I thought it would be a good subject to talk about today since we are doing a work from home vlog. But anyways, y'all, it's time for me to get back to work. So I will see y'all in a little bit. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay, thank you. And what's your agency phone number? Let's see, I have a different phone number. What's your IATA? Okay, thank you. And let's see. A 5263 and a 6760 number. Yep, I am. Yes, ma'am. You're welcome. Let's see. And this is for December. I'll go ahead and cancel it out for you. And if they've correct, yes ma'am. So they'll get 90% back minus the cost of the cancellation protection. So that's the only portion that's non-refundable. It was, yes ma'am. You're welcome. And let me just notate the booking real quick here, and then I'll send you a confirmation. And if they've made any purchases for gifts or excursions or dining, they will, and they paid for those, they will automatically cancel out and be refunded for those. Okay. Oh, okay. Understandable. I was just going to ask you that too, if they wanted to maybe move the sale in. Okay. Okay. So that one is canceled. Let me get you a confirmation. Let me see what email address we have for you here. I am showing vendor. Okay, so really quick, I'm waiting on a call to come through. I'm in the ready mode. It's just a slow call volume today. So really quick, because I forgot to mention, another way that your SOW can be terminated is call avoidance. So call avoidance is basically when you avoid taking care of the customer. Okay, what they consider call avoidance, a few things, right? The first thing that they consider call avoidance is if you purposely hang up on the guest, right? If you're in the middle of servicing them and you hang up, right? Without branding the call, anything like that, right? You just hang up on them. Another way is if you do not respond, right? So if a call comes through and they're like, hello, and you are not responding, that could be a little risky as well, right? The reason I say that is because there are times where your headset might malfunction or the system may freeze or something like that, and you're talking to them, but they can't hear you, right? So, it could be a little bit tricky with that. But if a call comes in and you're just sitting there and you are not saying a thing and they are constantly calling for you, that could be considered call avoidance, right? And see, there was another thing too. Oh, if a call comes in and you just transfer them to a whole nother department without trying to assist them first, that is considered call avoidance, right? So you want to stay away from anything that could potentially look as if you're avoiding the call to the client, right? So I just wanted to throw that in there real quick. Okay, thank you, Joanne. Let me pull it up for you. Okay, what's your agency phone number and who are the guests? Thank you. And who's going to be traveling? Who's going to be traveling? Vancouver. Okay. Okay, sure. Let me change it for you here, or add on the night. Right. Yes, ma'am. Okay, So they've got 2 nights at the Westmark Hotel. Did the guests need to add cancellation protection today? Okay, so let me send you a confirmation so that you can see that they have the additional night. I have chwestchester@gmail.com. Is that a good email address for you? Awesome. You'll get a confirmation shortly. Did you have any other bookings you'd like for me to look at for you today? All right, y'all. So we are at the end of the video. Workday is over with, and it was a pretty interesting day. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was bored a lot of the times throughout my shifts, okay, because the call volume was just not voluming today. It was extremely slow. However, girl, when you're ready to get the call, when you're in the go setting for a call to come in, even if one doesn't come in for about 15 minutes, as long as you are available to take the call when one does come in, you still get paid, girl. So I got paid to sit here for most of my time, and I'm okay with that, okay? So anyways, y'all, this is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I was able to give some insight on scheduling, flexibility, SOWs today. And I'll try to think of some more topics that we could talk about that we haven't talked about already. Termination of SOWs is something that we definitely have not mentioned on this channel. So it was new, fun to talk about. And yeah, so thank y'all for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, leave a comment down below, say hello. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, girl. It's free, don't cost you nothing. And I will see you guys on the next video. Bye.